I thought Devil's Food Cake Murder is an okay book for the series. It's entertaining, but it feels a bit like a placeholder book when you compare it to upcoming books like Norman's Secret Love Child, Mother Gets Married, Hannah on Trial for Murder, and Hannah Gets Married. Those sound super exciting! Also, there's a book where a jazz band comes to town. That one sounds a bit like a placeholder story, too. Argofunk Book Review, Argofunk Book Review. Hannah's new best friend is Grandma Knudson of Holy Redeemer Church. They're always hanging out together in this book, probably because Hannah acts 30 years older than she actually is. Reverend Matthew Walters will be their substitute priest for 2 weeks. Matthew used to live here 30 years ago, along with his cousin Paul. Paul and Matthew look exactly alike, but Paul grew up to be a criminal. He was recently released from jail, and nobody knows where he is now. While Claire is on her honeymoon, Andrea fills in for her at the local clothing store. Andrea takes her temporary job way too seriously. She goes through all the sales records for the past year and memorizes them. When Andrea sees Hannah bought a pink top, Andrea immediately closes the shop and marches over to Hannah's store to criticize her fashion choices. Andrea's a jerk. Hannah's mother has written a second Regency romance novel. There are a few scenes where the characters talk about mother's books. In real life, author Joanne Fluke wrote these romances before she started the Hannah Swensen series, so she's basically giving herself free advertising here. Hannah's love life has been bad ever since Norman's ex-fiancee came back to town. Dr. Beverly Thorndike appears to be a good person. It's hard to tell because Hannah never talks to Dr. Bev, which is a big problem. The series introduces Dr. Bev as a major villain, but Dr. Bev never says anything. I wanted to see her interact with Hannah, but she never does. All we get is Hannah's one-sided complaints about Dr. Bev. Hannah complains that Dr. Bev is young and she's pretty and skinny and nice. That makes Hannah sound really petty. Hannah comes across as more reasonable when she complains Dr. Bev is changing Norman. She's forcing him to do different things like eat pineapple pizza and watch the Minnesota Wild basketball team. The Wild aren't a basketball team, by the way. If you're gonna complain about a sports team, at least try to get their sport correct, Hannah. Mike isn't any help. He has Hannah make food for Dr. Bev's birthday party. Hannah has to do it because she doesn't understand the concept of saying no. Hannah holds a minor grudge against Mike for treating her like a free cookie service, but then he kisses her and his kisses are so awesome that all is forgiven. In the mandatory cat subplot, Hannah's cat is sneaking socks out of her sock drawer and batting them onto the fridge. How does he get inside there? The drawer is hard to open, and Hannah could easily solve this problem in 2 minutes using her cat security camera from 3 books ago. She doesn't think to use it, and in the end, it's revealed her cat is getting into the dresser through a different drawer. Grandma calls Hannah with a mystery. She thinks Matthew is an impostor. There are 4 reasons she thinks that this guy is a fake. First, he's good at singing. Second, he had a really long vacation. Third, he doesn't remember the color of a chair from 30 years ago. Okay, these are all really silly reasons to assume he's an imposter. The final reason is that he was allergic to chocolate as a child, but he's not allergic anymore. And that is a little fishy. A brief call to Matthew's secretary reveals that Matthew isn't a fake. He's just colorblind, a good singer, and apparently you can outgrow chocolate allergies. That's good news for everybody who's allergic to chocolate. There is plenty of food talk as Hannah prepares food for 3 different events. Norman catches up to Hannah when she's leaving Dr. Bev's party. Norman says he really misses Hannah. He loves spending time with her, and he's just so happy to talk to her, he doesn't even notice that it's below freezing right now. It's really cute. I like Norman. Hannah finds Reverend Matthew was killed in his office while eating devil's food cake. Matthew was killed in front of a mynah bird. Everybody laughs at the idea that a talking bird can identify the killer. How silly. That's like a bad detective novel. The talking bird later gives an alibi to one of the suspects by repeating what she said when she left the room. I don't see how a talking bird confirming an alibi is any less ridiculous than a talking bird confirming guilt. As usual, Hannah's partner Lisa makes a ton of money by reenacting the discovery of the dead body. Lisa's upset to hear the victim was shot because she enjoys competitive shooting. Lisa gives a politically charged lecture on the importance of gun rights at this point. I don't know, Lisa. This town has at least 5 murders per year. Maybe some gun control is a good idea for Lake Eden. Hannah has a date with Norman, and the waitress gives her a special dessert, so there are 2 recipes from the date. Then Hannah and Norman go back to Hannah's place to bake bread. The next morning, Hannah makes up a pudding variation of the recipe, while Norman comes in with his own food. 3 other people show up unexpectedly, and they join in the feasting. They all love the breakfast, because everyone in this town is super obsessed with eating. This long food segment is followed by the briefest of investigations. No joke, the second investigation chapter spends more time talking about the weather than talking to the suspect. It's like the author cares more about recipes than mysteries. The victim's former girlfriend is innocent because she had a nice meeting with the victim. This chapter has a recipe. The victim's former rival is innocent because he couldn't have left his house. There's a recipe with him, too. A man appears at the church. He claims he's the real Reverend Matthew, and the murder victim was an impostor. This is a good plot twist, but the weird part is that no one has any idea how to determine which man is Matthew the priest and which one is Paul the criminal. Paul was in jail. The police should have his fingerprints. But no, they don't. Everyone believes the new guy when he says he's Matthew, and he makes little effort to back up his claim. Suspicion falls upon Paul's old buddy Lenny. Hannah's family goes to Lenny's bar, and of course, Hannah brings cookies. Everyone brings cookies to trashy bars, right? The free food gets her inside of Lenny's office, where he's secretly running an illegal pawn shop. But Lenny's a nice guy. He likes cookies, after all, so he gets away with it. There is a half-hearted resolution to the prank phone call storyline from the previous book. It turns out the culprit is Hubbard, some random punk who's never been mentioned before. Well, that was a disappointing explanation. Grandma sees Matthew use the Bible as a stepping stool. No real priest would do that, so he must be a fake. Hannah correctly guesses that he's looking for something. She searches the entire church, and there's a showdown in the bell tower. The impostor admits he's Paul the criminal. He killed Matthew to get some stolen jewels that were hidden in Matthew's luggage. He's about to kill Hannah too, but Grandma saves her life by ringing the church bell. Paul is so startled, he falls down and breaks his leg. We end with a cliffhanger that is more exciting than anything else in this book. Dr. Bev reveals she was pregnant with Norman's secret love child when they broke up. She's forcing him to marry her if he ever wants to see his daughter Diana. The end. Post-book follow-up. I would give this book a 6 out of 10, but I am taking away a point for excessive food talk. The characters never shut up about food. They even talk about food they're planning to eat while in the middle of eating. I don't know how long the book would be if all the food and recipes were cut out. Maybe 100 pages? At one point, Norman casually mentions that Dr. Bev is dating Mike. Yes, Bev and Hannah are both dating Mike and Norman at the same time. I wish this had come up again. Hannah should have talked to Mike about him dating Dr. Bev. In a different book, Hannah and Bev could have worked out a deal to split up the men equally. The investigation is good. It seems to be moving forward regularly. It works to have Hannah investigate the victim long before he's murdered. Still, he's probably an impostor because he's good at singing is a pretty weak reason to investigate someone. Hannah has grammar police moments. She gets mad when Lisa says can I instead of may I, and when Andrea says woken up instead of awakened. Also, Hannah has to define protan anthropomorphizing, and spot on! Overall, I thought it was pretty standard for the series, but there's room for improvement. It would be better if they cut out half of the food parts and moved the murder closer to the start of the book. It'd be better if Dr. Bev ever talked to Hannah at any point. I thought the mystery of the victim and his lookalike cousin was fine, but other reviewers found it to be dumb. I give Hannah Swensen number 14, Devil's Food Cake Murder, a 5 out of 10.